And go.
Hello, I am Cosette Lemelin, a Senior Educational Developer at the Center for Teaching and Learning, and this is my colleague Jen.
Hi everyone, I'm Jen Ward.
We are very pleased to spend some time with you today to talk about some ideas for creating community remotely now that we are largely online. So the first idea that I wish to share with you today is captured in this slide. Hello, I'm here. Can you see me? Can you hear me? It's really important when you are leading courses, whether they are through EClass or whether they are through Zoom, to have what is known in the academic literature as an instructor presence. Now, we'll share some ideas today about what that instructor presence might encompass. But the key idea that I'd like you to take away first is that if we don't have a presence in our course as an instructor, it has negative consequences for the learner. If the instructor is not present in the course, then the students often feel like they don't have to be present in the course as well. So some of our examples today will look at physical presence, like you might be experiencing now with Jen and I being in video chat, or it may also be written presence or going into activities discussion forums, giving more detailed feedback on what's been placed in the eClass course. One of the first things I'd also like you to know about having a community or building a community among your students with your course is taking what is really just a shell in eClass and personalizing it and making it your own. So essentially adding your teaching personality, your teaching presence to your course in unique ways that might reflect you or the particular discipline within which you teach. So here we are in this situation where we're online with our students. So why not give them a chance to get to know you in small ways that allow you to connect with them over this social distance? So some great examples that I've seen in the last couple of days are instructors maybe introducing their students to their pets. Or for instance, I have this painting that I have been hauling around between different parts of the country since I was 19 years old. It is a painting that was done by a schoolmate of mine from elementary school that I bought. And she eventually moved to San Francisco and became a professional artist. And now I could not afford one of her paintings. So just these small touches, like this is what's in my dining room. You might tell a joke or tell a little bit of a personal story. By nature, we might be wearing slightly less formal clothes than we would be in the classroom. That's, of course, your choice. But you might tell the students a little bit about yourself and things that they might not normally see. So that's a way to make your course your own if you're interacting with the students. Within eClass, you might put in some cartoons, some pictures. You might have a news story or a highlight from the day in your course to make it your own, but just so that students see that there is some of you that they saw in the classroom on eClass as well.
So just thinking about virtual check-in. So some ways that we might do this would be with everybody being up on the screen, whether they want to show their video or not. It's really important that we revisit the classroom rules. So we've heard some stories about students maybe not being as professional as they could be and maybe saying things online through Zoom that they wouldn't naturally say face-to-face to their classmates. And so it's really important that we revisit what does it mean to be professional in this space. What types of things should we be talking about when we have breakout rooms? Remembering that we are academics and that we need to uphold that academic space even in this virtual classroom. Did you want to add anything to that, Cosette?
No, I think if you were already teaching a course face to face, it might be good to revisit those agreements that you made with the students at the beginning of the term about communicating professionally and appropriately with each other in the classroom, but asking students, do we need to adapt any of these to the virtual space? And just reminding everyone that the importance of communicating in ways that help everyone continue to learn, despite the fact that we're all in doing it in a new way.
And you could even build that in a forum as well, so that it's written out and people have a chance to contribute, because students may or may not be coming to class, right, in the virtual, so they might not get that information. You could actually have a sharing circle. So this is something that I do face to face anyway in my classes, but it would just be a check-in. So you could ask everybody to share one word about how they're feeling today, and that would just be simple. So if we modeled that, I might say, you know, I'm feeling tired, as an example. And Cosette might say,
I've been feeling overwhelmed, but now that things are starting to slow down, I'm feeling much more comfortable with it.
perfect. And Cosette modeled what most students do, and they give more than one word. And that's okay too. But we just have to, you know, note that if it's a very large class, we might be there for a while. So trying to make time for that. You could do something through Poll Everywhere or Mentimeter, where the students, you can ask them questions, you can have the poll up and running. They might use Zoom emojis. So if I wanted to use that, that's at the bottom of my Zoom screen, and I could go like this, which might be helpful for timing. And you could also create a Google Doc, and you could ask a question in Google Doc for the virtual check-in, and you could get people to maybe share pictures of how they feel, or something. Maybe there's a meme that kind of describes exactly how they're feeling today. Cosette, sorry, I'll get you to go to the next, unless you had something to add in that section. So thinking of small group activities. So we might want to go to interpretive dance just to make things a little more exciting, but nobody wants to see me dance, so I'm not going to model that. But maybe we could think about what we can do to actively engage students. And so if we had more participants in our webinar here today, we might put people into breakout rooms so that we could discuss this. But I think we could just have a little discussion about maybe some small things that we could do to actively engage students. Any thoughts, Cosette, on that? Any small activities?
We can still use some of the small group activities, whether we're using a discussion forum or a breakout room. We do need to give very clear instructions for what we expect of participation when we send students into a breakout room, or if we're in a forum, or if we give students a task to do, particularly online. But I think that one of the small things that we could do to actively engage students is having students come up with some of the questions that before they come to class, or by assigning a reading on EClass, for example, or something from slides that were previously posted, maybe a previous little lecture that's posted previously, and then have students bring their questions to the discussion forum, to the video chat. And those questions also give the instructor a sense of the student's understanding of the material and their depth of understanding of the material.
Yeah, the other thing that I was thinking is that in their breakout rooms, there could be, if they have those questions ahead of time, then, you know, one student could be tasked with being the moderator of that conversation, and the other students could be taking notes simultaneously on Google Docs. And so all of those notes would be there for the professor to see. and to look at, right? And so you could monitor that way. And you can also pop in and out of those breakout rooms for those small group activities.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Cosette.
Just like in class, there's a number of ways that individuals can be encouraged to participate. I mean, I know when we're in our large classes, well, classes large and small, there are certainly some students who are very quick to participate, sometimes to the extent of being over participators. And so, in similar ways, when you are leading online discussion forums or you're leading a Zoom chat, I think it's important that we find small ways to encourage different types of students to participate, so that many voices are heard within these small group activities. So calling for instance, a spokesperson on behalf of the person, on behalf of the students who have been in a breakout room is one way to do that. Or asking one student to summarize the ideas of the group and then share that in writing if they're not comfortable sharing their video, or if they're not comfortable communicating through voice like we are here.
Perfect. You could also build a forum question where it was like, please take, what you've learned in your breakout room, and share it here, or ask a obviously more complex question about
Mhm.
what they might have been talking about, and ask them to put that in the forum as well. So that, and everyone must participate, I suppose, right? So you would, build that into your syllabus expectations for, um, participating in class, because I think those are some of the things that are going to be having to be addressed as we move forward. If we're going to be teaching remotely for spring and summer, is that there's those things that will need to be built into the syllabus for participation.
I think so. And I think one of the ways to get all students participating is to give the students a task to complete. Maybe they need to complete a chat, like a chart, a table, a gap fill activity, whatever the task is. And I'll talk about this in a moment. A case problem, and be clear about what each of the students is to contribute to that, and have clear guidelines about participation and over participation, under participation.
Yes.
Clear examples of how that's defined given the specific nature of your course material.
Perfect. So I think we sort of already talked about this, about putting the students in smaller groups, giving them a safe task to complete together, maybe getting to know one another. We're going to have to try and build that community between the students, maybe in the same ways that we would face-to-face, but we might have to be more intentional about checking in with the groups, I think, as instructors and professors, because we're not going to visually see what's going on, right, as we would in the class. So we'll have to maybe check in a little more regularly, and not just let the students be in the forums and them doing that without some sort of oversight by the instructor or professor.
I also think that it's an important part of not only good teaching, but of building community online, is when we are in our EClass sites. Traditionally, our EClass sites have been, at the very least, on the most basic level, they have been a repository for all this stuff related to our course. So if I go into any given course, I have some readings, I might have some PowerPoint slides, I might have a YouTube video, and it's really easy to just make this repository a list, almost like a shopping list or a grocery list of stuff for every week. And in order to encourage the students, to give them some sense of the pacing and when they are to interact with each other, and to better interact with us as instructors, I think it's really important that we include some additional narrative beyond the shopping list of documents and slides and clips or links to other things.
Mhm.
So, for example, if you are giving this shopping list, you might have a few sentences in between each item that tell the students, well, why are you asking them to do a particular reading? What is it about the reading that you are hoping that they will get out of it? Or why did you select this particular author or this particular text for them to read? Students also find it really helpful for you, if you can, to give them a rough estimate for how much time it will take to do the particular reading. I mean, it may be a window of time. This particular reading will take you between 20 and 40 minutes, given that different students have different strengths and weaknesses in reading. But another idea that you can use in this narrative between the online documents is to give them a sense of what are the priorities, right? Like, which one do you want them to read first, second, third? What do they need to read or think about before they go into that discussion forum with their classmates so that they are prepared? What is the follow-up after they've gone and had a Zoom session, a discussion forum, or an online lecture? Where do they go next? All of those instructions that you would provide in class need to be stated within the EClass. And I'm encouraging you to state them in ways that sound conversational rather than as instructions that you would have in a formal document like a syllabus. So to build that camaraderie, that community, you can feel free to write it in a slightly less formal way. I mean, there will be varying degrees of comfort among instructors to do so, but I think that you can feel free to use a slightly less formal tone than you would if you were creating a syllabus, and just give students a sense of what are the expectations, and what is the order, why are you doing certain things, why did you choose certain things, and what are you hoping that they will learn by going through these series of documents. The kinds of things that you would likely tell them in class anyway.
And it's always nice to say, we're going to talk more in depth about this article or that article, so that they know to pay maybe more particular attention to those articles, because the likelihood of them being able to read everything in depth, I just don't know that students will be able to do that given all the stuff that they're doing with all their other courses. So I always like to give, when I'm working with students, that heads up. I'd like to think that they would read absolutely everything that I post, right? But I don't know that they will. They'll be
Yeah.
tricky.
What is the absolute that they need to do to be ready to come to a class that involves discussion, or to best understand a lecture if it's an online lecture with 200 students, for instance?
Yeah.
Now, many of us will find it easy to do this as a written narrative. If you are writing a written narrative, then I encourage you to keep it fairly brief so the students are not overwhelmed with text. But if you choose, you could also do it as a quick video narrative every week. I have seen instructors in the past, and again this week, who have a 2-minute video clip where they are talking to their students and they say, "Hi, everyone. Here is the plan for the week. Before you come to this online class, please do this, or before the end of the week, I strongly encourage you to do this, and here's why." It's a chance for you to connect with your students through video as well. But go with whatever you are most comfortable with first. The key message with this point is simply to provide some direction, instruction, and guidance in one way or another, written or through video, to help them work through the materials that are in the EClass that week, so that they can learn better together, and that your relationship with them stays to the best optimal teaching and learning experience. So another strategy that I found is really great for creating interaction among students, because my last slide was largely about the interaction with the instructor. But in building community, we need to build some interaction among the students as well. And one way that we can do that is by setting up case studies in a Google Doc and then assigning a certain number of students to the Google Doc. Now, depending on the size of your course, you may have students do this within breakout rooms, or you may have them do it simply by connecting the students to the Google Doc online. This is an example case that we used in a CTL workshop about an over-participator called Know-It-All Nan, and we worked with some of our instructors who came to us through CTL to talk about how we would manage an over-participator. But there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. The Google Doc is advantageous because then you can assign either the same case to each group and then get the groups to look at how other groups solved the case by switching the access over through one main spokesperson for the group. Or you can assign different groups different cases. And then if you have a small group, you could have a smaller class, you could have sort of a case presentation by sharing the results of the case with the whole group, or even sharing it online through a discussion forum. This will depend on the nature of the content, of course, but a Google Doc is a really great way to do this, because a Google Doc will essentially document who within each group is contributing to the case study problem. So this gives you a record of which students are contributing and what they are contributing to the case study solution. You can also, as an instructor, go in and make some comments on the side to nudge them along, depending on how long you have given them to work on the particular case study. The case study solution may take place during a class, or it might be something that a particular group of students works on for the entire week. It's really up to you, depending on the complexity of the case, how many students you have working on the case, and whether you want to have that case presented back to other student groups live, or simply by sharing documents across groups. If you're concerned about the technology for how to do that, then I encourage you to contact us at CTL and we can help you work through that. But having groups of students work on a Google Doc on a case or a problem can be a great way to get students interacting and working on things together. And as an instructor, it gives you a chance, because you set up the Google Doc, to go in and look around and see how the individual groups are working together and make sure everyone's contributing.
And in EClass, there's a function to set up forum groups. So it will automatically will set up groups if you want. You can press the automatic button and it'll just put students into groups according to the size of the group that you want. So you can choose how many students you want in each group.
All right. The other idea that I had that is more of an interaction that is created first and foremost between the instructor and the students in building community is to invite a guest into your course. Now, a guest can come into your course, whether that's an expert on your topic or simply another colleague within the department who also happens to be stranded at home or is willing to give a couple of minutes of their time. You can either ask your guest speaker to record a little video, and then you put that in EClass and then have the students ask follow-up questions, or vice versa. You could have your students ask particular questions about a topic and then invite a guest speaker in to either answer those questions live or record a short video or podcast answering those student questions. This gives the students a chance to interact not only with you, but with another colleague from the faculty or another expert in the field. So this is a way to get some variety into your course, particularly if you feel you are an instructor who isn't always comfortable sharing yourself online or recording videos, or you'd like to do that video with another colleague and then work together to have a discussion that is then shared with your students, either in a pre-recorded lecture or live, depending on what you're most comfortable with. This gives the students a chance to see some dialogue, to see some academic discussion, and have that modeled for them, but also to have some of their questions answered in a different way.
And it really makes the learning environment dynamic when you have that extra guest in to speak. I was speaking with a professor yesterday who's done that with an Indigenous elder. And so there were some unintended things that happened. So the elder then had a conversation in Cree with his partner. And so the students got to see how the actual Cree dialogue is going back and forth. And so that was really dynamic for the students. And the professor said, you know, I wish I would have actually utilized remote technology before, because it actually changed how the information was presented. So he really enjoyed that. And I'm just thinking, you know, when we're inviting guests into the space, we still have to think about it is that they're still using their time. And I just want to say and preface this, you know, when we're inviting, especially Indigenous folks into the space, that we still model good hosting techniques, and that we still pay them for their time, we still provide honorarium, the gift, those sorts of things in some capacity.
Okay. An idea that follows from having guests in the course, one other idea that I think of that I was working on with an instructor this week on campus, just on Monday before we went to fully online, was this instructor was asking about the possibility of having some students put little tiny video clips or their own recorded videos, whether they did that with a smartphone or Screencast-O-Matic, a technology that the students were able to record short clips and then put them into the e-class, either posing questions or making a point. I think that this strategy would work well in small classes, classes like seminar classes. But I think the important point here is that those clips would need to be vetted by the instructor before they were posted online, and they would need to be posted online anyway, largely through the instructor. But just to keep that in mind, that if you're going to have students sharing videos, that it might be a good idea for you to vet them in advance.
The other thing is making sure that you're creating a Google Drive. Mm-hmm. You know, that the students can drop their video files into, because EClass has told us that we can't house videos on EClass.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So I'm thinking of watching videos together. So this was a question actually that came through the Zoom video meeting that we have open here for faculty to, you know, come online and ask us any questions that they have. And one of the professors was saying that she wanted to show a movie via Zoom, or a clip, a video clip. I think it was a 1-minute video clip. And so she was having problems with the volume. So just one thing to note, that if you're going to show your screen while facilitating in Zoom, and you're going to show a video, although you could post that video and have students pre-watch it. You don't have to do this all together, but if you want to, you can. And so what you're going to want to do is, in that microphone button that you have on the left side of your Zoom screen, the one that says mute or unmute, if you click the arrow, the up arrow that's next to it, you need to click same as system option, and that will allow the students to hear what you hear. That's by far the easiest way to get it to sound okay. But you can actually, Netflix allows you to share videos and watch with friends. So this would be, you'd have to have Chrome, and it's like an extension that you have on the back of your TV or your computer or something, and then you can stream it. You can stream Netflix. And so this is a little more complex than I want to get into. But if you need help with this, we can definitely help you organize this so that you could watch a movie all together. But again, you could ask the students to watch it, but some students might not have Netflix or have capabilities, so maybe watching it all together might be a good option. You can also really anything, you can share your screen, you can really share your screen with all your students and show whatever you want. It's just that if the sound and the volume doesn't sound great, students might start to tune out. And I don't know that I would watch a whole movie with my students online, because I don't know that that would be a good use of my time.
Okay. But certainly if you wanted to show full clips, if you wanted to show some clips of movies or videos, then you could use those first reactions to prompt a discussion.
Yes. And you should always have that discussion with whatever video you're showing, right? That should prompt some sort of discussion. And of course your intro, right? So introducing it and how you're summarizing those ideas afterwards. So to use a form or not to use a form, and I know this can become a very static experience. So you create your forum questions, students go in, they answer, it seems very one-sided. What I like to do with forums is make sure that I ask questions, not sort of open-ended questions so much. I ask maybe more direct questions, but I give a series of questions that students can answer, so they can choose which question to answer. But they must answer one of those questions that I pose, and then they must respond to one other student's response. So there's some sort of a dialogue going on. And so during regular classes when we're face-to-face, I go in and I watch what's going on, but I don't necessarily comment. But now moving to this remote teaching option, I think it's really important for professors to be in there and to be commenting like you would in class, right? And as you would be making your way around to student groups to hear what they're talking about, I think that that's important in this new teaching climate.
Yeah, I think that one of the most important things that I've learned about teaching forums when I have used them in my own courses is that the students need a very clear guidelines about the expectations for contributing. So when does the forum start? When does the forum end? Just being clear with students that coming in the last 10 minutes of the forum is open and saying, yeah, what everybody else said is not contributing, and making sure that you also have answers that have limits to them, so someone isn't writing an essay response and sort of stealing the fire of all the other students. That doesn't provoke discussion either. That what is a good contribution given the nature of the content that you have? So in my own area, a good contribution was a comment and a question forward. So when I posed a complex question, each student made a comment and then sent a question forward. And then the next student that came in made a comment, and they could choose to either answer a question or send another question forward. And this kept the conversation going. I also found that my forums, when I taught classes, if I made more than 8 students in a particular forum question, then it became very hard for me to follow through on the threads. So I can only imagine how it was for the students. So I tried not to make my forums too big. I wasn't in my forum every day because I wanted students to have a chance to put stuff out there and respond to each other and not feel that I was going to comment on everything that they said. But I was in there every couple of days and I offered my own comment and question, just like they did, so that the rules applied to them and the rules applied to me.
Yeah, those are great points. When I'm doing the forums, I release forums on Mondays, the forum questions. The students have until Wednesday to put their initial responses in. And then Thursday and Friday, they comment to someone else. Because what I found out when I first did it, and this is like, you learn as you go, that
Of course.
if I just left it open, students were waiting until Friday. They went to the last moment to put in those initial comments. And so I had to sort of put some parameters in place. And then I think I limit it to 150 word response.
Oh, you did, eh? You found a word response was really helpful?
Yeah, because if I wasn't, it was like full on essays.
Yeah.
Right? Because they think they have to keep talking rather than just being really clear, concise, and precise.
Well, and I've also found that in graduate courses and senior level courses where there were more theoretical, I found it really helpful to have one person each week in a discussion forum. If I'm running a different forum, I found it often overwhelming to have a forum going for the entire course. But let's say for the sake of maybe I'll have 3 or 4 different forums a semester. So that would mean, for example, in my own course, I had 4 students in each of those forums, or 6 forums and 6 students. So for each of the forums, one student was responsible for summarizing in 1 page the main ideas that came out of that discussion, and then sending that on to the students and on to me who were in that discussion.
Perfect. And in grad classes, students can still lead the discussion. So they can be the ones posing the questions in the forum, moderating that forum alongside the professor too.
Right, right. So,
okay.
So sort of last thoughts before we share our contact, as we share our contact information with you. In thinking about building community within your courses now that they are remote, I encourage you to think beyond the interaction between you and the students, which is the first thing we go to when we're thinking about what do I need to put there in eClass in order to keep the course going. Now that you're settling into your online courses, I encourage you to not only think about your interactions with the students, but also the students' interactions with each other, so that we can build a community where students are supporting each other in the teaching and learning of the course and within the current challenges of the time.
Perfect.
So if you do have any follow-up questions, then we encourage you to contact us at ctl@ualberta.ca. I'm Cosette.
I'm Jen.
And thank you for spending this time with us.